Subscribe to our channel and hit the bell icon so that you know when live we go.
Hello and welcome to today's DNS session. We are going to have a discussion on today's newspaper, The Hindu, Delhi edition, dated 8 January 2022. We shall try and pick up articles which are important for civil service examination and discuss them as per the demand of the exam. There is an article on page number 3. Sustainable farming creates new livelihood sources. See, recently, members of Chief Minister's Economic Transformation Advisory Council of Rajasthan have visited villages of Rajasthan's Banswara district. Rajasthan's Banswara district has adopted sustainable natural farming system. The effort to start this natural farming system in the Banswara district and mostly in southern Rajasthan began in 2006-07 with the effort of Planning Commission. The idea of Economic Transformation Advisory Council's members were to study the challenges that the farmers faced in the process of adopting sustainable natural farming system and as to how it is helping in developing new livelihood sources and ensuring food security for indigenous tribal communities. See, sustainable natural farming system has always been of great interest in the agricultural sciences, and Indian agriculture has always been considered as sustainable before the beginning of chemicalization of agriculture and before the beginning of producing organized food. Because the agricultural system in India was based on integration of soil and related ecological systems. So sustainable natural farming system essentially is integrated farming system. When the farming system is integrated, meaning various components like horticulture, agroforestry, cereals production, they are integrated with each other, then it becomes sustainable. An agricultural system that can overcome a stress, meaning that can overcome a discontinuity in the input or the prevailing situation, that is referred as sustainable. In the context of Rajasthan, especially in southern Rajasthan and villages around Banswara district, the discontinuity factor could be rain. So a farming system can overcome the stress of shortfall of rain, then it will be sustainable. Food and Agriculture Organization refers to sustainable agriculture as successful management of agricultural resources to satisfy changing human needs while maintaining or enhancing the quality of environment and conserving natural resources. So sustainable farming system also entails circular utilization of resources. When the farming system is sustainable, that ensures food and nutritional security. As per Dr. Swaminathan, food security is livelihood security at the level of each household and all members within and involves ensuring both physical and economic access to balanced diet, safe drinking water, environmental sanitation, primary education, and basic healthcare. That's one of the widest concepts of food security. It is pertinent that we talk about food security and nutritional security vis-a-vis different farming systems because India has been ranked at 71st position in Global Food Security Index. This ranking of 71 is out of 113 countries. Previous to this ranking, India was ranked as 101st position in the Global Hunger Index of 2021. The State of Food Security and Nutrition in the World 2020 report states that the prevalence of undernourishment in the total population in India has declined from 21.7% in 2004-06 to 14% in 2017-19. But this number is still very high. So food and nutrition security is of essence in our country. And it is of more importance in the tribal communities in region where the tribal population is dominant. The goal of attaining social equity and inclusive growth, as is the developmental and economic goal, it cannot be achieved without providing livelihood and nutritional security to the most vulnerable sections of Indian population, and that consists mostly of scheduled castes and scheduled tribes. About 8.2% of the population is scheduled tribe, and India makes the largest concentration of tribal communities in the world. The southern Rajasthan region is one of the most tribal dominated region of our country with 70% of tribal population. But the thing is that the socio-economic condition of tribal farmers does not allow them to adopt new production technology. It does not allow them to take newer risk. And majority of the tribal farmers are marginal and small farmers. Around 86% of farmers in our country are marginal and small farmers, but this number goes even higher among tribal farmers. So, to solve the problem of food and nutritional security, to generate employment, new livelihood sources in the tribal communities in regions dominated by tribal population, it is essential that we come up with sustainable natural farming system or integrated farming system. Integrated farming system is a multidisciplinary holistic approach to solve the problems of small and marginal farmers. The declining trend in the per capita land availability poses a serious challenge to sustainability and profitability of tribal farmers. So it's essential to integrate land based enterprises, for example, crop production, dairy production, horticulture, poultry, and fisheries. All these land based enterprises must be integrated within the farm with the objective of generating adequate income and employment for these small and marginal tribal farmers, thereby improving livelihood and nutritional security. Now let's have a look at different components of integrated farming system. One of the important factors for increasing the productivity and profitability of farmers in the Banswara district of Rajasthan has been seed replacement rate. The cereal crop rotation was prevalent in the cropping system followed by tribal farmers of the region. The productivity of these crops were very low due to use of food grains as seeds. Very high seed rate, indiscriminate use of fertilizers, improper crop geometry in the field because of presence of weed and proper water management on field. When in the region, improved variety of seeds were given that proved to be one of the most critical input for agriculture and for farming. The seed replacement rate in maize, wheat, barley, gram, rice, soybean, they all increased in the range of 20 to 40%. For a lower seed rate, it was important that there must be community-based seed management system, which facilitated the diversification of crops. The commercial vegetable production generally is not followed by tribal farmers, and also because of high risk associated with vegetable production, because the waste is very high. And on top of that, the marketing skill is low. During National Agricultural Improvement Program of the state government sponsored by the central government, hybrid vegetable production were promoted in the region along with the crop production. This intervention alone has made a major impact on the livelihood of the farmers. Farmers had very high return when crops like chili, ladyfinger, coriander, they were grown along with cereal crops. Apart from this, the availability of mobile refrigerators. These mobile refrigeration vans were made available to fetch good prices of vegetables in surrounding markets. Rural tribal farmers are facing the malnutrition problem due to less diversified food habit and low intake of vegetables in their diet. Farmers generally grow maize round the year, so they eat maize with locally available vegetables. They rarely purchase vegetables due to the poor economy. The Nutri gardens consisting of seasonal vegetables, crop seeds also have been established in the region near the houses of farmers for their own consumption to improve the nutrition. The soil in the region, in the western Rajasthan region, in the Banswara district and the region around, they are stony, clay, loam. These soils have more conveyance losses of water through seepage. Farmers generally grow crop near to the source of water. But under the project of National Agricultural Improvement Program, farmers were trained to utilize water sources efficiently in their field. And for this purpose, even a simple help to the farmers, for example, the availability of PVC irrigation pipes on shared basis. It brought huge amount of additional area under irrigation. And now the farmers can grow vegetables, green fodder for livestock, etc. on greater amount of land. The farmers of tribal region generally use their own traditional farm equipments, and that takes a lot of time and labor in preparing the fields. To improve agronomic efficiency and reduce the drudgery in agriculture, farmers in the region were provided with improved farm equipments on custom hiring basis from rural technology centers. Under the National Agricultural Improvement Program project, farmers of the Bhilwara district region and in the southern Rajasthan region were further tied up with market to get better prices of their produce. Under the national, they were grouped together on the basis of self-help principles and ultimately forming Farmers Producers Marketing Company. Farmers Producers Marketing Companies are registered under the Companies Act 1956. These farmers producers marketing companies or farmers producers companies, they enable the small and marginal farmers to organize themselves as a free market entity. They follow the values and principles of cooperation. These companies can do collective procurement, they can do the marketing of agricultural inputs like seeds, fertilizers, pesticides, insecticides. They can act as organizations acting as the last mile disseminating point for technology. On top of it, the advantage of organizing farmers into farmers producing marketing companies are that they produce a generation of leaders in the form of board of directors, president, secretary, and members associated with all these endeavor. These trained personnel can serve as technology agent and can act as bridge between industries like Kisan Vigyan Kendra, State Agriculture Department, and other private companies for knowledge and skill private companies and other private companies for knowledge and skill empowerment. So in this way, replication of this model throughout the country will bring revolutionary positive change in the livelihood of underprivileged people of the disadvantaged districts. In the beginning, as we have talked about, it is not easy for the farmers of tribal population to take risk because they live on edges. So support in terms of infrastructure and technology has to be given by the government. But to carry on the research programs and to maintain the supply chain and to ensure the availability of critical inputs like seeds and fertilizers and equipments and storage bins, etc., sustainability fund were created in the Banswara district. This sustainability fund is important to make the agriculture sustainable. So what we have learned is this. Integrated farming system research is a multidisciplinary, holistic approach to solve the problems of small and marginal farmers. Because the small and marginal farmers are the core of Indian agrarian economy, constituting around 86% of total farming community, but they possess only 36% of total operational land holdings. The declining trend of per capita land availability poses a serious challenge to the sustainability and profitability of tribal farmers. So, under such situation, it is appropriate to integrate land-based enterprises, the dairy production, crop production, horticulture within the farm with the objective of generating adequate income and employment of these small and marginal tribal farmers and thereby improve and sustain their livelihood. So, diversification of agriculture through vegetables, oilseeds, pulses, and inclusion of livestock proved economically viable intervention in tribal dominated areas of southern Rajasthan. It not only enhanced income of household but also provide on and off farm employment opportunities for small and marginal farmers, thereby reducing migration in the region. So it's a model worth emulating, and hopefully the Economic Transformation Advisory Council members who have gone to visit the Banswara district to learn from the agricultural model will successfully translate the model in the entire state, and from there it can take it up to different parts of the country. There is an article on page number 1. Supreme Court permits NEET counselling under present OBC EWS quota. In 2019, Government of India came up with a notification for granting 10% reservation, and subsequently it was passed with the Parliament as well, to the EWS category. Supreme Court expressed its concern over the arbitrariness of fixing the criteria for reservation. One of the criteria was annual gross income of family to be rupees 8 lakh per annum. This amount, howsoever, seems similar to the amount fixed for OBC. So both OBC and EWS category having the same upper ceiling of gross family income as rupees 8 lakh seems a little arbitrary to the Supreme Court. And based on that, Government of India had set up an expert committee to look into the criteria for EWS reservation. The expert committee gave its report and Government of India submitted in the Supreme Court that it's going to accept the reservation, but also pleaded that let the counselling for admissions this year happen as per the same criteria. Otherwise, this whole session of this year will go in limbo. So we will begin our discussion discussing the doctrine of reasonableness or doctrine of reasonable classification, based on which the doubt on the entire criteria for EWS reservation was raised. See, Article 14 says that state shall not deny any person equality before the law or equal protection of the law within the territory of India. Equality before law, as provided in the Article 14 of our Constitution, provides that no one is above the law of the land. You must have heard the quote, "Be you ever so high, the law is always above you." Rule of law is an inference derived from Article 14. Article 14 aims to establish equality of status and opportunity as embodied in the preamble of our Constitution. However, Article 14 does not mean that all laws must be general in character or that the same law should apply to all persons or that every law must be having universal application. This is basically because all persons are not by nature or by attainment or by circumstance equal in position. Thus, the state can treat different people differently if the circumstances justify the differential treatment. Also, the identical treatment in unequal circumstances would amount to inequality. Thus, there is a necessity of reasonable classification. And this reasonable classification is considered as important for the society to progress. Supreme Court has maintained that Article 14 permits reasonable classification of persons or objects or transactions by the state for the purpose of achieving specific ends that help in the development of society. However, there has been argument from various quarter that the extensive use of reasonable classification as a tool for development by the state and its approval by the Supreme Court has rendered the guarantee of fair and equitable treatment within the scope of Article 14 as illusory. So here comes the role of test of reasonable classification. The test of reasonable classification says that the classification must be based upon intelligible differentia. This intelligible differentia differentiates or distinguishes person or things that are grouped from others that are left out of the group. Meaning the classification must be done in an intelligent manner. The differentiation must be rational. There should be a relation between the differentiations to the object of the classification. There must be some kind of relation between the basis of differentiation to the objects or persons who have been classified into a particular group. Fundamentally, it means that there must be a criteria. That criteria must be reasonable, rational. So classification must be done in an intelligent manner. The concern that Supreme Court has put forward was that for OBC creamy layer reservation, the cutoff gross annual income is 8 lakh. And the same amount was put forward for economically weaker section as well. So 8 lakh for OBC creamy layer and 8 lakh for EWS both. This does not seem reasonable to the Supreme Court. Hence, prima facie, the action of the state was seemingly arbitrary. Let's now look at as to what was the criteria for classification of people into EWS category. As per the notification that Government of India gave in January 2019, a person who is not covered under the scheme of reservation for SCs, STs and OBCs and whose family has a gross annual income below rupees 8 lakh are to be classified as EWS for the benefit of reservation. But there is some exclusion criteria as well. For example, if that family owns 5 acres of agricultural land and above, then they are excluded from EWS criteria. Similarly, a residential plot of 100 square yards and above in municipalities and 200 square yard and above in other areas will be excluded from the criteria. There was a third exclusion criteria of 100 square feet of residential flat anywhere. You must note that family here would include the person, his or her parents. It will also include spouse and children under age of 18 years. You must note that family here would include the person. So income of brothers and sisters will not be taken into account to calculate the ceiling of rupees 8 lakh gross annual income. But income of the person, spouse and parents' income will be counted. And income includes all income: salary, agricultural income, business income, professional income for the financial year prior to the year of application. So there are 3 things here. First of all, this income of rupees 8 lakh annual gross income. Then there's a criteria of agricultural land and there's a criteria of residential plot or residential flat. And concerning all these three, there was a sense of arbitrariness. So the expert committee that center has set up has discussed all these three criteria and made modification to justify the reasonableness of the classification of EWS. The expert committee has defended the criteria of rupees 8 lakh gross annual income. It has reasserted that this should be the eligible criteria for the benefit of EWS reservation. The Supreme Court has prima facie observed that applying the income limit of rupees 8 lakh, this essentially is the income limit for OBC creamy layer. So applying this criteria to economically weaker section was unreasonable because EWS has no basis of social and economic backwardness. But the expert committee has opined that this criteria is reasonable because it appears to be the same for OBC creamy layer and economically weaker section, but they are applied very differently in different contexts. For EWS, as we just have discussed, the criteria relates to one financial year, the financial year just preceding to the year of application. Whereas the income criteria for creamy layer in OBC was applicable to gross annual income of 3 consecutive financial years. So the safety net for OBC creamy layer is higher than EWS. For deciding OBC creamy layer, income from salaries, agricultural income, and traditional artisanal professions was excluded. Whereas in calculating rupees 8 lakh for EWS, all incomes are included, including farming. So rupees 8 lakh for a person falling in EWS criteria would be quite different from a person falling in OBC creamy layer criteria. And hence, it's a reasonable classification. That's the opinion of the expert committee. We have to wait and see what opinion Supreme Court forms on this opinion. The expert committee also gave various logic as to why this rupees 8 lakh criteria is reasonable. First of all, in the definition of income criteria for EWS, agricultural income is included, and the agricultural income does not attract income tax. So there's a practical problem in estimation of income. And considering the income tax reforms, wherein effective income tax on individuals was zero for those with annual income of rupees 5 lakh. But however, taking advantage of various provisions for deductions, savings, insurance, etc., the taxpayer may not need to pay any tax to annual income in the range of rupees 7 to 8 lakh. So taking maximum benefit of tax incentives, individuals earning up to rupees 8 lakh may not pay any income tax. And people not paying income tax must be counted as belonging to weaker section. So for this reason, this number 8 lakh has not been plucked out of thin air. It has not come out of the blue. There is a reason. There's a rationale behind it. The expert committee also has defended the exclusion criteria based on the agricultural land. A family who has 5 acres of land and above shall be excluded from the EWS classification. See, the argument that the expert committee has put forward is that there is paucity of information concerning agricultural income because it is exempted from income tax. Also, there is a lot of variability in the agricultural income depending upon the geographical location, the soil type, the climate, and other factors. So it would practically get very difficult to objectively set a criteria of different amount of lands in different region. We might have to apply supercomputers and quantum mechanics maybe for that. But if we do not have an exclusion criteria, then there will be inclusion error. And if we do not have a reasonable number like 5 acre, then there will be exclusion error. So to minimize the inclusion error and the exclusion error, the expert committee has defended this exclusion criteria of 5 acre of agricultural land. Concerning the residential asset criteria as an exclusion criteria, the committee has recommended for removing this criteria. In the opinion of the committee, it is not an easy task to specify a general residential area threshold for the entire country, because essentially that will require lakhs of candidates every year to get the valuation done of their houses and the plots. Further, the committee also said that if the residential house was used only for dwelling and not for income generation, then that essentially should not be used as an income criteria. So here's a summary of the recommendation of the expert committee given to the central government, and central government has said in the affidavit to the Supreme Court that it's going to accept the recommendation. The family income limit for EWS classification of rupees 8 lakh per annum gross will be continued. The exclusion criteria of 5 acres of agricultural land and above will also be continued, but the residential asset criteria may altogether be removed. The center also has said that these changed criteria will be applicable for the next academic session, and the counselling that was going on, that was put on hold, will be taken forward with the same criteria as before. Now we'll have to wait and watch what the opinion of Supreme Court comes regarding the reasonableness of these criteria. There is an article on page number 1. NSO estimates financial year 2022 GDP growth at 9.2%. According to the first advanced estimate presented by NSO, India's gross GDP is estimated to grow at 9.2% in the present financial year. Advanced estimates are made based upon the performance in the first 8 months of the financial year. This growth estimate, which is on the higher side, is based on the farm sector output, the mining sector, and manufacturing sector. The GDP in the preceding financial year contracted to minus 7.3%. So the NSO estimate is on the higher upside. There's a little difference in the estimate done by NSO and the estimate done by RBI. The RBI estimated the growth to be 9.5%. NSO's estimation is slightly lower with 9.2%. But these estimations have a rider that the COVID-19 infection does not spread more than anticipated. But considering that the COVID-19 infection, the Omicron variant, will not make the economy go out of hand, then the GDP and the GVA will recover much more in numbers compared to the pre-COVID-19 era, compared to the COVID-19 first wave era. And this largely is because of government spending. Government's expenditure and investments have picked up, and it is likely to be more than the level of 2019-20. The weakness in economy is on the demand side. The demand expenditure constituting 55% of the GDP is sluggish. It's 3 points lower than the level of 2019-20. But to cover up for that, government final consumption expenditure is expected to increase by 7.6% more than the preceding financial year and around 10.7% more than the financial year 2020. Gross fixed capital formation. This is growing by 14.9% in the current financial year. This shows efficiency in economy. But the private final consumption expenditure, this is slightly lower compared to the pre-COVID-19 era. But throughout the COVID-19 pandemic, agriculture has performed better, relatively better compared to other sectors. Not in terms of absolute numbers, but its performance has not deteriorated as much as that of other sectors. And agriculture is likely to grow at 3.9% in financial year 2022, and the growth rate was 3.6% in the preceding financial year. During the first wave of COVID-19, agriculture was the only sector that registered growth in positive number. Manufacturing sector is growing rapidly at 12.5%. Electricity generation is also growing simultaneously, which had very tepid growth in the preceding financial year. Service sector like trade, hotels, and transport are also likely to grow at around 12%. But all these are with the assumption that COVID-19 pandemic will not again choke the economy. You have on your screen answer to yesterday's question of the day and today's question of the day. Please attempt the question, and for more practice, also visit the ELEARN platform to attempt the DNS quiz. Goodbye, take care.